Hey, Pastor Josh here. We're reading Mark chapter 11, verses 27 through 33. Jesus is going to be just attacked from all sides, from all the religious elites. He's going to be questioned. He's going to be put through the ringer, if you will. He's going to be tested quite a bit. And so here is one of the first of many challenges that we will see here in the book of Mark. And they came again to Jerusalem. And as he was walking in the temple, the chief priests and the scribes and the elders came to him, and they said to him, "By what authority are you doing these things? Or who gave you this authority to do them?" Remember, one of the major things that he did is that he went into the temple and he overturned the tables and started to put on restrictions on how they were supposed to operate in the court of the Gentiles. And so the religious leaders, the people in charge, understandably come to Jesus and say, "Now, what exactly are you doing? Who gave you this authority to do that?" And so this is kind of even a little bit of a trick question because where have you gotten this authority? You shouldn't be doing it. And so they're hoping by the words of Jesus that he will condemn himself and put himself into some sort of trouble or put himself in disobeying the various laws of the temple in the land. And here's what Jesus said to them. Jesus said to them, "I will ask you one question. Answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I do these things." So he's really turning it on them, saying, yes, I'll answer your question if you answer my question first, because the way you answer the first one shows the connection and even implies where my own power came from. And here is the question that he asks them. He said, "Was the baptism of John from heaven or from man?" Was the baptism of John from heaven or from man? He goes to the very thing that he knows the religious leaders have rejected. They have rejected the baptism of John, the baptism of repentance that John was calling everyone to do. And that's an attitude we need to change. If we don't accept the things that God tells us first, he's not going to tell us more things. We need to accept the initial teachings that he has given us. And then once we accept those teachings, then we can, then he will give us more teachings. The religious leaders were not willing to believe John. They weren't willing to believe God's prophet through John the Baptist, and therefore they're not going to receive more. And look at the emphasis that Jesus even says. He says, "Answer me. Was the baptism of John from heaven or from man?" Answer me, because the way you answer that is very important. And Jesus implicitly was connecting himself to John. Now listen to how they respond, these little stinkers. He says, "And they discussed it with one another." So they're not going to just answer truthfully. They're going to talk about it. They're going to scheme and figure out what is the best answer to say. And so then they say, "If we say from heaven," he will say, "Why then did you not believe him?" So right here's a sin. They're not just going to answer God outright. They're going to have to think and just see, how does their answer influence the people around them? How can what they say bring about the ends that they want? They're not going to answer truthfully. They're wanting to speak in a way that will get them what they want, and that is manipulation. That is sin. And so if you ever find yourself saying things just so the people around you will do certain things rather than speaking truthfully and from the heart, you have found yourself in sin. You need to confess that. Seek to change that. So they said, "If we say from heaven," he will say, "Why then did you not believe him?" Because that's the answer the crowd believed, and they obviously didn't believe John was from heaven, because if they believed he was from heaven, they would have believed him and followed after him. So they're saying, well, we can't say that, but that's what the crowd would want us to say. And then verse 32, "But shall we say from man?" That's what they really believed. This baptism of John wasn't really from God. It's just something made up. If we say from man, we're going to get in trouble with the people. They were afraid of the people, for they all held that John really was a prophet. They realized that they would have a mutiny on their hands, this crowd, and all of these people that had been coming into Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover would have perhaps caused them some big issues. So they have all these people here gathered together for Passover, and they don't really want to say, hey, John's baptism is for man, because otherwise it may cause all kinds of other trouble for them. So what do? They go in the middle. So they answered Jesus, we do not know. And that's an example not to follow. We should talk truthfully to anybody. We should be honest. We should be forthright. We shouldn't be hiding, manipulative, or secretive. And so that would be an example not to follow. And of course, we want to be honest with God. You can't hide anything from God, so you might as well be honest with Him to begin with. We do not know, is what they said. And Jesus said to them, neither will I tell you by what authority I do those things. And that's kind of getting back up here to this initial question, was the baptism of John from heaven or from man? When the Lord tells us one thing, we need to believe it, accept it, and act on it. And as we believe what God has already revealed, after we act on what God has already given us, then we will see that there will be more for us to have. But since the Pharisees and the religious leaders had refused to believe what God had already given them, then they weren't going to get anything more. Pray that has been a blessing to you, and I'll see you in the next video.